Okay, and we're recording. Hey guys, Kelsey here. I am joined today by Rebecca, one of our clients and an absolute rock star of a mom. She's graciously agreed to come on and tell us about her story. It's an incredible one of learning and achievement that she went through with her son, Josh. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
So, let's start out just very briefly. Where is Josh right now? What's the status?
Okay, so he is attending college right now in Southern California, and he's a freshman there.
He's a freshman and he's on a scholarship, correct?
Yes, he has an academic scholarship.
Fantastic. Okay. So let's rewind to a few years and just start us off. Give us a bit of context on Josh's experience in school, right? Maybe starting from like the transition from middle school to high school. What was that like for Josh?
His freshman year, he would fall behind and try to catch up. Sometimes he was like, didn't know when certain assignments were due, or his work wasn't very high quality. And so his freshman year, he had C's and B's. The time management, the critical thinking skills. His writing was very high level, not very deep. So it lacked detail because he had those type of challenges. He did not, get really good scores on those. And especially, he also had to do some time writes in class. And so sometimes he would not write anything. And during the time write, it'd be a blank page because he didn't know what to write. Yeah, so that was kind of for us, it was very stressful too.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that's a really good example of course, it's stressful for the student. I think there's a few things worse than sitting in a class in a timed environment where you have to write something and nothing's coming out. It's an awful feeling, but like it's almost worse to be outside of that where you want to help and you can't do anything, right? Like you're powerless. You can't help them in that moment do better and not feel stressed. So what did you guys, in light of that, what did you guys try? As far as like to, minimize these challenges or try to resolve them? What are the kinds of things that you tried with him?
Well, let's see. I basically just tried to work with him on it myself, and yeah, that's basically it. I think I just tried to help him myself.
And how did that go as far as working with him? And I ask because like so often too, we hear the mom hat, which I always say should be the most respected. But so often with kids, it's just, it doesn't necessarily come through, or it's not always welcome, or it's not heard with the right intent, where it's heard as like, my mom is at me or whatever. Was Josh like pretty open to it, or was it difficult to help him do those things, to help him build those skills?
He was open to it, but then it was like, it wasn't like he came over to me and said, "Hey mom, can you help me with this?" It was more like, we need to work on this today, right now.
Right.
So it was more like I had the urgency, but he didn't have that, sense of urgency, which I would have liked him to kind of say, "Oh shoot, this is due. I need help. Please help me." Where I'm like, "Get off your video game right now, and we gotta work on this essay."
Yeah, so he was receiving, he was the recipient, but he wasn't doing that proactive fell to you, essentially is what I'm hearing, to be
Yeah.
one of get off the video games. Okay, and how did that work out? Like was that for like grade 9, grade 10, and then he got more in the hang of it, or was it throughout, all
It
years?
was throughout high school. Yeah. I mean, he also has trouble with focusing too. So, yeah. And oh yeah, we touched on this, the reading comprehension. It was just because I think some of the things he didn't quite understand,
Mhm.
but he just kind of reads, but without taking notes. I think that's the problem. Is like he would read things, but just not take notes. And so when it came time to write something, he's like, oh, I don't know what to write, or I don't remember if there was any supporting quotes that I, came across. So he would just spend a lot of time like trying to locate it again.
Yeah, and that speaks so precisely to the link between these different sort of like academic competencies, right? Where it's like the ability to write an essay links fundamentally to reading comprehension, right? Like, can we understand what we've just read, think about it critically, and incorporate it in a way in our essay that makes sense, that supports a thesis, etc. Like all of these things, they're all linked, right? So like if one is really hard or you're not doing it, then it's kind of like dominoes, the rest suffer.
And then 11th grade, it became harder. He had like two AP classes. And I don't know, for some reason, he was just going through a lot of self doubt and even feeling depressed. So that was kind of like a really dark time for him. And yeah.
So what was the worst part of, was the self-doubt due to just feeling like it was so hard, like because it was AP, it was just harder for him to understand and do? Was that kind of the core root of it, or was it something else?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, definitely the level of the classes did get harder, but I think there was also some um, things going on outside of the classroom where he was like, I think, trying to fit in with a certain um, group of kids, basketball. He was on the basketball team, and I think um, he loves basketball. And the group of students that he would play with, I think he complained that they would not pass the ball to him, and they didn't really give him a chance of, you know, allowing him to fully participate. And I think that sort of rejection was also reflecting on him. Luckily, somehow he was able to get over that kind of a really emo stage. uh, and he was feeling more uh, confident about himself. I think also that he was finally a senior and looking forward to applying to colleges. So it came with a very positive energy. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's senioritis that we hear about, but like in the best sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be excited about it. So how did he find his classes and everything? How was everything going? And how, tell our audience, like, how did you come to meet me, to find us?
Oh, okay. So in senior year, he actually had taken was taking three AP classes now. So even a a harder level, and I was always kind of was worried that in the past years, okay, I mentioned those assessments that he had to pass in addition to those projects. So last year, in his very last week of school in junior, he had six that he still had to pass
In 1 week.
in 1 week, and it was very stressful. And it didn't help that um, he got sick for a week in 1 week in May, and just like messed him up. So coming into senior, I'm thinking, oh, if he doesn't have a certain projects turn in or a certain amount of assessments passed by a certain deadline, he's not going to be able to graduate on stage. So that was kind of going in back of my mind, like we do not want to have a repeat of junior year where he has 6 or 7, that last week to pass.
Yeah, no kidding. So that's like that time management, like just getting the stuff in on time, like really amplified for senior year because the stakes, I mean, not being able to walk with your class on graduation, that's a pretty high stake. Okay.
There were things like prom, he wouldn't be able to attend. The senior trip, he would not be able to attend, not being able to walk on stage, which are all things that I would love him to experience.
Of course.
But, the school had strict requirements that if the seniors were not meeting certain requirements by a certain date, they cannot participate in those events. So, anyways, as far as how I found Como, I'm a big Facebook user, and because Facebook knows about things that I need to might be interested in, such as education and tutoring and college ads. Como Consulting's ad came across on my Facebook feed, and I was reading it, and I'm thinking, okay, free webinar, learn how to, teach students learn how to learn. I'm like, okay, it sounds good. So I decided to sign up for your webinar, and I listened to what your approach was, and I'm thinking, well, okay, at the end is a free consultation. It's like, okay, I'll make an appointment. And so we talked on the phone, and then afterwards you asked me, okay, so what would you like to do? And I remember I said something along the lines like, well, if I don't do anything, then everything's going to stay the same. There's not going to be any improvement or change into the way he's doing things now. So I decided to hire your company and do the initial 3 months. And I think we started last November. It wasn't the very beginning of school, but it was like a few months in.
Yeah, I remember. I actually do remember that, and you're spot on. It was, we talked about everything. We talked about what can we do here, what would be, what do you want for him essentially, and like here's options. And that is exactly what you said. Like, well, I know what will happen if I don't do anything because it will be the status quo. Mm-hmm. And then, so tell us a bit about like, okay, so we start working together. Just tell us a bit about what was the initial experience, what was your initial thoughts, Josh's, what happened in those first couple months?
Okay, well, I think first, one thing that I think I appreciate about my son is that when I say, okay, I found you a new tutor, or I enrolled you in this new program that's going to help you in school, he's also always very happy and positive about it. So I think that was one thing that was already going well for him. So he's very open to receiving help. And let's see, so the first session, I believe you were working with him and getting that Google Calendar up. I gave you access to his online platform, and you were, learn more about it. And then I also appreciated very much that you provided the various tutors, subject tutor matter experts for him, like for math and chemistry, and for writing experts for English and history. So that was like a very nice to have like a all-in-one type of program.
Yeah, the team support, and that's something that a lot of people kind of raise their eyebrows, like, what do you mean I'm going to have 3 people working with me? And it's like, oh yeah, like we've got you across the board. But like you said, like Josh, where a lot of students could get overwhelmed or not sure about it, he was like, really, I have my own team to help help me learn how to do this? And he was so into it from day one, which obviously made it a lot more impactful, I think. Yeah, so getting him set up with his calendar, I do remember that vividly also, because he wasn't really using one. And then when we got it set up and like like starting to color code everything. And like, that was, we saw, I remember vividly like seeing him start to understand what that time management, which is so abstract. We talk about it all the time, but like, what does that look like? And he was doing it, right? Day to day or in sessions, like flexing that time management muscle and building it out. Okay, so just as far as we're doing all that, we have his team. What, for you guys, we were talking about the challenges earlier, that it was stressful, and obviously stress doesn't disappear overnight. A bit of stress is healthy. But just overall, like, do you think that it made a difference for his senior year?
I believe that having Como work with him during his senior year really made a big difference. He was never really too far behind on his assessments. He was mostly on track. And, just knowing when his assignments were due, having another person be accountable to, whether it was the math tutor or the chemistry, to kind of walk him through the concepts, explain the concepts, to look at his homework, and to kind of give him guidance and stuff on it, for the essays to have him create the outlines, and then editing the essays. It was a huge difference. So I was thinking to myself, I told my husband, I said, where have they been, Como, been all my life? It's like, I wish we had them, at the beginning of high school, not his senior year. It would have been different.
What would you say were the 3 biggest takeaways for him as far as, being able to do school increasingly better, right? Just week to week, month to month.
Oh, well, definitely keeping that Google Calendar up to date, and inserting all his assignments in there. Oh, I also mentioned he had tried to learn to advocate for himself as a teacher. So if there wasn't something that was clear, emailing the professor, I'm sorry, not professor, but the teacher. I'm in the...
You're in college mode, yeah.
Well, he should be emailing his professors if he's not clear on certain things. Going to office hours, and then I think having someone like Como, the tutors, being accountable to him, or having him be accountable to them, and meeting on a regular basis with them, I think that made a big difference. So my goal for him for his senior was to not to pass all his courses, to not be in the last week of school still having several content assessments to pass. By the first week, or the last week, I think everything was passed, and he probably just had a few more assignments to turn in. But it was all about, oh, I get to walk the stage with my classmates, and then I'm out of here.
Yeah, like sayonara. I love that so much. Like that especially those last few weeks, and maybe the last like 10 days, where it wasn't about, oh my God, I'm worried I have to do all of these things. It was, oh my gosh, I'm on top of everything it's in, and I have 200 hours before I'm done and out of here. A much more positive, really positive, super positive note to finish on. Speaking of, sorry, random, but last night I got the grad announcement.
Oh, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, it just came in. Sorry for everyone watching, but I had meant to tell you that, and it just came in. So it brought tears to my eyes. He looks so happy, and he achieved so much, and it's on my fridge. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. I felt that, I really wanted to share that with you, because as I was creating that grad announcement and then I was sending it to all the people that I felt were really instrumental in helping and supporting him through the years.
Thank you. You're going to bring tears to my eyes. That means a lot. Thank you. Yeah, it's no, it was our honor and privilege to be there with him. So I appreciate that. It's awesome. Um, okay, so those are amazing for Josh. And then what about, we have some parents watching who there's always a spectrum, but I speak with a lot of parents who are okay. They think the status quo is okay, where if it has to be, things are stressful or it's hard or there's a lot of doubt or it's just always a bit of a struggle, and they think that is always how it's going to be. Or a lot of parents who think, given different factors, whether it's a school factor, a learning difference factor, it doesn't matter, that they think that it can't get better for whatever reason. So to those parents listening, like, what would you say? Do you have 2 or 3 main kind of takeaways that, just based on your own journey, what you went through with Josh, what you guys learned and grew together, things that you think they should hear?
Oh yeah, I would say that if you're thinking that things are going to get better by not doing anything, it's not going to get better. I've had met parents where they would tell me, oh, my child is having difficulty in school, whether it's focusing, reading, etc. And I would say, hey, this is even before, I met Como, but I would say, hey, this is a program that I tried and stuff. And they would say, oh, I think we'll just wait and see. And maybe in 6 months, then we'll think about it. I'm thinking to myself, it's it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better in 6 months. It might get worse because you've lost that 6 months of time to help your child with that particular issue. So I would say that if your child is struggling in school, you should take action now. It's not going to get any better. I took that. I think of, working with Como, it was an investment, right? It was somewhat of a risk in a sense that, okay, it's an investment. And with investments, there's some risks, whether just like in a money investment or like what you call stock investment. Sometimes it's a good investment, sometimes it's bad. But it's an investment, but you won't know until you try. So that's what my attitude was trying Como consulting. Was okay, we'll give it three months to try out. And if it doesn't work out, I don't have to continue. But if it works out, then we can continue. And so luckily it worked out even better than I thought. And that's why we are continuing to use Como consulting while, my son is in college. And it's we're so happy Como is working with him in college.
Thank you, Rebecca. We are too. It's just one of the greatest joys to see that transition, and that ongoing growth is tremendous. And that's such good advice. I can say it, I've heard other people say it, but coming from you who went through it and saw what that path could have been had there been no action. And I love it too, because I think it's an Einstein quote where it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And that's one of the biggest frustrations that we see parents have, where it's nothing is changing. And it's well, what have you done? What action, right? What really meaningful action have you taken to make it better? And it's usually next to nothing, or it's usually just more of the same that they know doesn't work.
Well, we did have, tried different programs before. We had taken him to the Math Learning Center before, where they have him practicing various math worksheets. And I also, have hired tutors, subject-specific tutors, and they do help him with the subject. But there was no one that had actually taught him how to learn how to do time management, organization, and doing those type of things until Como came along. So I'm very grateful for Como in that respect. Yeah, so this is actually, your program was actually the type of program we've been searching for the longest time, and but we never, really found anything like it. And I felt like it's kind of like a, what you say, is a, how it's like one of those all-inclusive vacations, right? It's not a vacation. I mean, it's all-inclusive. It's like you've got the aspect of learning how to time manage, how to create a calendar, keep track of your classes, advocate for yourself. Plus, you have the subject matter experts provided to help you with those specific subjects. So, it's like virtually the perfect education consulting group.
Wow, I'm going to use that, Rebecca. I'm not going to lie. The all-inclusive vacation. I love that so much. I hadn't heard that, but you know what? It is what we strive to do, right? Where it's the constantly going back between different sources and having all these like that. It's just such a waste of time and energy and money. So that all-inclusive experience, that's awesome, and that hit the spot for you guys and for Josh, and we'll continue to, as he's like in college, in the throes of transitioning to college right now. Okay, that's awesome. And I feel like I've kept you longer than I promised, so I promise I will start to wrap up. But so those are two awesome takeaways and advices for moms. Like, it's not going to change without doing something, right? The status quo will stay the status quo. The kind of holistic, skills-based, right? Learning how to do the school as opposed to just the subjects is huge. And then is there anything else just that you wish you had known, or that advice or things that you would share with our audience?
Well, I would also say the attitude of the student is also very important. Mm. And I'm very fortunate that my son has the attitude where he accepts help. Mm-hmm. And he actually, thoroughly enjoys all the sessions with the various tutors that he's had, and he looks forward to them.
Which is not always common, especially for learners his age. That's a really good point, because you can have access to the best strategies or the best whatever, but if you're not open to using them, then what's the impact going to be? That's what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Rebecca, thank you so much for taking the time to share about your journey with Josh. It's just been such an absolute pleasure to get to know the family and work with you both. So we're super excited to continue in college. And you guys, anybody listening here, Rebecca started with a phone call, with the webinar, but then a phone call. It's free. We talk about what's going on with your kids, if we can help them and genuinely change that status quo. So I'll put the link in to book a call. If you are serious about making positive change with your kids in school, book a call. We'll chat for about 45 minutes and we'll get a game plan and see what we can actually do to make that change together. So that said, Rebecca, thank you so much again.
Yeah, I would say make that call and talk to Kelsey. She knows what she's talking about. And I feel like if I didn't make that call, I don't know where he would be now. I think, he probably just floundering.
Thank you for that endorsement. And so you guys, listen to Rebecca. She has told you, make that call, book that call. Only good can come of it, regardless of what happens. And that's it for today. Rebecca, thank you so much. And everybody listening, have a great afternoon, and I'll see you on the next video.
Bye.
Bye.